酒井さん、ヒュンジ、あと数分で始めさせていただきます。ヒュンジ will be starting in just a few minutes.
はい。よ
よろしくお願いします。
ろしくお願いします。
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the side event of the 13th Asia Pacific City Summit, Healthy Cities in Action, Maximizing Health Co-Benefits of Inclusive Urban Developments. This event is brought to you by the World Bank Tokyo Development Learning Center. My name is Shoko Tawara from the World Bank, and I will be your MC for today. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you, our audience connecting online today, and also to our distinguished group of speakers who we will be hearing from later today. Just before we begin, a very few housekeeping announcements. Today's presentations will be in both English and Japanese, so should you require interpretation, please select your language of choice from the Zoom interpretation bar. 皆さん、こんにちは。本日は、お忙しい中、第13回アジア
Hello
太平洋
everyone, thank you very much for taking part in this side event of the 13th Asia Pacific City Summit, Healthy Cities in Action, Maximizing Health Co-Benefits of Inclusive Urban Investments. My name is Shoko Tawara from the TDLC of the World Bank. Today's program will be consisting of the presentation and the panel discussion in both Japanese and English. If you wish to listen to Japanese, please select Japanese from the Zoom interpretation tool.
I would like to welcome, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Chris Pablo, Senior Urban Specialist and Team Lead of the Tokyo Development Learning Center, to welcome all of you. So Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Shoko, and hello everyone. My name is Christopher Pablo, and I'm the new team lead of the Tokyo Development Learning Center. First of all, let me thank everyone for joining this side event, and I would like to thank the government of Japan, the city of Fukuoka City, the organizer of the 13th Asian Pacific City Summit, for giving us the space to have an exchange on what I believe a very timely topic, healthy cities. We're on the third year of this pandemic, and we strive to adapt to the constraints and challenges this lingering health problem is causing. And I cannot overemphasize the role of cities in ensuring our well-being and how we go about our day-to-day life safely as we emerge out of this health crisis. We hear about cities rediscovering the value of, for example, public spaces, agile health and welfare facilities, and better use of information technologies that allow our citizens to live in the so-called new normal. Today, we brought speakers to share insights on how we design and rebuild cities that are healthier greener, more inclusive, and resilient. We will first hear from Ms. Hyunji Lee, urban specialist in the World Bank, who's based in Washington, D.C., to share the preliminary results of an analytical work by the bank on healthy cities. We will then learn some of the biggest shifts taking place in Japanese cities that contribute to positive health outcomes. Although different in policy and approach, they share common goal of improving the health of citizens and promoting a more inclusive and attractive urban communities. With that, let me turn to Hyunji for the first presentation.
Thank you so much, Shoko and Chris. Can you hear me clearly? Yeah? Perfect. Okay, so let me first share my screen. Yeah, everybody see my screen okay? Okay, perfect. So yes, my name is Hyunji Lee, urban specialist at the World Bank. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this important session. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. First of all, let me just give you a bit of background of Healthy City agenda at the World Bank. So this is, Healthy City is not a new concept, but at the World Bank, it is quite new idea and recent initiative. And after the COVID-19, we've received a lot of requests from the client cities that what will be the next step and what will be the city's role in the post-COVID role and any guidance available. And so we tried to address these queries and kicked off a new analytical work on healthy cities. And today I'd like to share some of the key messages from the upcoming report on the healthy cities. So as I just mentioned, healthy city is not a new concept. Throughout the entire urban history, the pandemics and epidemics has triggered urban transformation, including Black Death and cholera map and then Spanish flu. And through this all the pandemics, we saw each innovation in cities. But even despite those global progress in public health enhancement, still many people and spaces are still suffer from the unhealthy living conditions. And the main reason for that is that ongoing separation between public health sector and also with the other sectors, including urban development sectors. And with this siloed approach, cities often miss opportunities to maximize the health outcomes of our interactions. And after extensive review of the literature and our own study, we found these three defining urban health issues. First is a growing demand for health equity. And the second is the strong health implications of the climate change. And third is what would cities would look like in the post-COVID world. And so first, health inequity. This is often arise from the poorly managed urban infrastructure and services. We all understand that low-income neighborhoods have a complex set of urban challenges, including poor housing, limited access to infrastructure and services, including green and parks and market and food, and water and solid waste management, and even health services. And more generally, there's informality and unstable incomes for the low-income neighborhoods. And all of these challenges exacerbate negative impact on health outcomes, including higher exposure to communicable diseases, higher mortality and non-communicable diseases, and higher safety and security risks and impaired mental health. So with this understanding, on top of that, the health impact of climate change also disproportionately affect the vulnerable people, especially in the developing countries. And this is because those the marginalized groups are often residing in at-risk informal settlements and more exposed to extreme right side. Also, informal settlements have been the most affected. It's not only about the COVID, all other epidemics. Diseases. And the left side graph shows that the are more likely to be contaminated, more likely to be designated as a contaminated zone, which means that they have high the COVID positive cases in assessment of the potential COVID exposure, or we can say the victim areas are mostly overlapping with actual informal settlement or contamination zones. So we can see that there's the low-income neighborhoods are really exposed to the highest health risk. And so with all of understanding those challenges, we now again go to the first question on what would be the next step and what we should do. And so we need to think about what is then a healthy city. And you can see in the screen that there's a really long, lengthy definition of healthy city. But key focus of this is that we are not evaluating or scoring the city's performances on the health outcomes, but more about the city's continuous efforts to improve the health conditions in cities. So with this, the bank developed an action-oriented framework aims to focus cities on urban actions and systems that provide targeted support for the vulnerable and deliver integrated solutions for a healthier future and that are prepared for future health crises. So we call it as tips for healthy cities. And with these action items, action areas, if a city is promoting these 3 action areas, then we believe that the city can improve health outcomes of different categories. So within the diagram, you can see the different icons, and those icons show the different categories of health outcomes. And another important point of this diagram is that we are not only talking about this human health, but also about the ecosystem health. And this is not only because ecosystem health is important as it is, but then it really affects the status of the human health. So our aim is to tackle these two types of different healths through the different action areas. And to maximize the health outcomes, there is, as I said, there is need to target, integrate, and prepare health positive urban actions. And we understand that there's a really never-ending long list of the urban action areas. But today, I'll focus on these 4 clusters of the urban actions. First is housing, second, public spaces, and third, market and food safety. Last one is water and waste management. So first one, safer housing for the urban poor. This is one snapshot of the slum areas. And often it is a case that those informal settlement or low-income neighborhoods are located in very hazardous sites. And this is leading to extreme vulnerability to climate change and disasters, including flood, landslides, and you name it. And they are often really overcrowded and lack of facilities. And we've observed from the COVID-19 experience that it is really the trigger of the spread of the infectious diseases. And each individual house has a weak structure, and it is leading to the vulnerability, increase the vulnerability to disasters and falling injuries even. And the insecure tenure, it is also a very important aspect of the health. It really leads to result in increased fear, increased hypertension and diabetes, and even low birth weight newborns. And in general, poor housing materials are leading to heat-related illnesses, for example, heat stroke, and indoor air pollution, and parasitic infections, and so on. So World Bank has been a set of the responses to address this issue, including the risk development of the risk-informed infrastructure development strategies and database, and also development of building codes and standards. And also there's an institute slum upgrading project in a number of countries, mainly in Africa and Asia. And second is public spaces. So in general, we often hear that there's a limited access to green spaces, and there's a growing volume of papers and articles show that limited access to public spaces are associated with physical inactivity and diabetes and mortality and all other diseases. And even if there is access to actual public space, there are often lack of safety facilities. So those public spaces often become crime hotspot, sexual harassment, and gender-based violence. And they're often poorly maintained, so people are illegally just dump their waste and increase injuries and vandalism. And also they're rarely connected to pedestrian networks. So that increases road accidents, limited mobility of the marginalized groups. So this is also quite recent initiative at the World Bank that 2 years ago, the bank published a new report on public spaces, and we developed a database of the public spaces across different cities, and also operation and maintenance system for public spaces. And there's a really increasing number of projects are focusing on public space upgrading and placemaking in different cities. And I will share Dhaka example today. And also more recently, there's a nature-based solution to promote more and better green spaces in cities. And the third item cluster is about market and food safety. Somehow this food market has been overlooked in urban development areas. So poor neighborhoods, obviously, they have limited access to formal markets, and they mostly rely on informal temporary markets, and they're more exposed to higher health risks. And even if there is a formal market, they are often poorly managed. So meaning the lack of electricity, sanitation, running water, all leading to foodborne, waterborne diseases, fires, and injuries. And there, as you can see from the photo, they are overcrowded and have a close contact with livestock and wild animals. And this is one of the major factors that increase the risk of zoonotic disease outbreaks, right? And also, lack of coordination and management mechanisms and weak regulations cause hygiene and food safety issues and increase foodborne diseases as a fecal bacteria from food. So this is also quite new nascent area for the World Bank to intervene on cities. So we just recently completed a number of city-wide market assessments. And also we try to develop an integrated urban food system and also strengthen urban-rural linkages to improve food safety, security, and sustainability. And I'll also share an example in Dhaka, that multi-sector market upgrading project, to see how this market can be improved. And lastly, there's a water and sanitation, hygiene, and waste management. Lack of water is linking to the poor hygiene, skin disease, infections, and diarrheal diseases and vector-borne diseases. And also lack of sanitation facilities is leading to fecal transmitted infections and safety risk especially for women. And if the poorly managed waste, for example, open dumping, like just toxic chemicals into soil, groundwater, and incinerating increase the carbon emissions, air pollution, and exacerbated flood risk. And exposure to infectious waste and urban dengue, malaria, and risk of chemical exposure, injury risk. So this is one of the traditional intervention area for the World Bank urban development sector. And then we have a really rich set of investment on this area. And then more recently, there's a more community-led interventions and more integrated intervention that across different sectors, including water and waste management, and urban development, health. And also we really try to formalize informal sectors, for example, informal waste pickers into this sector. So we've just went through all the urban action areas that we can discuss. And to enable those inclusive healthy city actions, there's a really growing need for improved institutional and financial arrangement. Because without this proper, adequate institutional arrangement, we cannot implement the integrated and the better actions for the healthy cities. So first of all, the institutions across different sectors and scales have been integrated, and the way to do so is very various, including coordinating body or task forces, and also we promote the participatory governance, including participatory health council establishment as the Kobe City or other cities are doing right now. And also participatory budgeting is one way to do so. And then another important aspect is to have develop the inclusive healthy city strategies. To have those strategies, it is really important to incorporate needs from all different communities into urban planning processes. One way is that linking informal settlement improvement action plans at different scales into formal urban plans. Because there's always action plans at the community level, but it's not the case that they're like properly integrated into the city level planning processes. So for the healthy city for all, this is one of the most important area. And then there's a number of different financing schemes, and I don't think I have time to go through all the details right now. But the key part is that we are not just providing the loans or the money directly to the government, but then more about try to engage the communities and also engage the private sector so that we can make the impact and financing solutions sustainable. And so, we have discussed all the action areas and principles and the example right now so far. And I'd like to finish this presentation with saying that the World Bank stands ready to help cities to re-envision their roles in promoting the health of the planet and also the people. So I just want to bring up this framework again to see that we have a really number of action items and recommendations under this TIPS approach. And also I don't think I need to go into all the details, but then targeted, integrated, and prepared actions. This is one of the key recommendations that we have, and we will have more details in the report. And with this also, we have more detailed action items for each sector so that the government find it useful to implement their business portfolio and to assess what are missing and what they can do better. So I don't know if how much I've spent the time right now, but let me stop here and over to Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoonji. So that was a quick rundown of such a rich presentation, no? And we hope that we can maybe ask the audience for any questions. If not, maybe I can start a little bit to ask a few questions. Yoonji, I think you've covered, I can see, a lot of activities that most cities are actually now carrying out. You talk of waste management, access to water, housing, but I can also see sort of like new ideas, no? For example, this the integrated food systems for this the access to formal markets, for example, and the rural-urban linkages to ensure food safety. Can you elaborate a little bit more on these ideas?
Sure. I think Chris not about bringing all the new ideas. It is really about how we can maximize the benefit of the ongoing activities, including waste management and all others from upgrading. Throughout all the process, one of the key lessons learned is that we've missed some key parts of it. And the food system, improving food system, is one example of it. And I have a more really detailed case and report on the case. And my second presentation on the city case of the Dhaka in Bangladesh during the panel discussion will touch more about how we can improve the market assessment. But key message would be, we are not, as an urban planner or practitioner, we are not only talking about physical upgrading of any urban asset, more about we really need to have a broader consideration, including O&M and the institutional arrangement, how we can map out different agencies that actually work on the same topic, and we can integrate them to offer a more integrated vision and action plans. So I'll talk more about those details during the second session, but I'm really happy to share more details if anybody is interested and have to discuss further. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, Yoonji, thanks. And do we have more time? Are there any questions, Tomoko, from the audience? And do we have time for?
Yes, we certainly have time for maybe one more question. We're still would like to make a quick reminder, plug to the audience that please feel free to put any questions in the chat. But if you are still thinking, we can revisit Hyunji in the next session as well. So please keep the questions coming. We have time for one more question, Chris,
Sure.
from you, and then we can move on.
Yes. So, Yunji, again, I really like the way you put forward all these ideas of how cities can respond to this huge problem. But I think what you've highlighted in terms of the way we go about it is this idea of putting up a health, the strategy, inclusive health, inclusive, help me, inclusive health strategies for cities. No, and I wonder whether it's something that we have seriously given thought of how it can be done and how the bank can support, let's say, our clients prepare these plans.
That is a really, really important point, I think, Chris. So yes, when we started discussion about healthy cities, first question raised is healthy cities for whom? And our answer is that this is really healthy, health for the most vulnerable groups. And then we all discussion started from there. But then how we actually work on this inclusive healthy city actions, and there's a lot more to do from now on. And what we are advocating right now is that all those participatory governance issues and all those even for the healthy, the food market systems and also public spaces, what the bank has been doing is overall understanding of city average, or the understanding of the overall the average limit, access to those services, and or the overall the quantity number of those services. But now what we are trying to understand is that different types of the assets that are available for different communities, and the really quality of those services that the people can get access to. So these are we try to go deeper in those understanding of the urban infrastructure and services to actually make the benefit of the health for all communities. And that is about the health outcomes. But for the process itself, we always highlight that participatory governance is really important part of it. And so in the report, we have a standalone section on this. And then there's not only about the simple participatory budgeting, but also try to promote the participatory urban planning processes, and also all those decision-making processes and so on. So I really hope that this can be more operationalized in all those operations and projects at the bank, and this will benefit the low-income neighborhood at the end of the day. I hope. I hope this answers your question.
Absolutely, Yunji. Last question is, when will this piece be available for dissemination?
So this has been cleared from the internal review process, and we will make it ready around the next quarter, which means around the early next calendar year. So yeah, I really hope that I can share the report with you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Yunji. Back to you, Shoko.
Thank you so much, Hyunji. Thank you also, Chris, for the excellent presentation. A lot of food for thought, and let's bring this conversation forward to the next session that we are about to start. So the Tokyo Development Learning Center of the World Bank, we work directly with Japanese cities, which puts us in a very unique situation to be able to package and curate Japanese practices, policies, and principles into actionable items to benefit cities in developing countries. And we just heard from Hyunji about urban health inequities. Also, we heard about ways in which the World Bank can and has been supporting not just the development of healthy cities, but also through that, the development of more livable and resilient cities as well. And as we start with the second session today, we are very, very honored to have here with us a great panel of speakers. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Deguchi, who is the International Business Relations Director of Kobe City. Also joining us online is Mr. Sakai, Executive Director of the Public Welfare Bureau of Fukuoka City. And of course, last but not least, a warm welcome back to Hyunji. The next segment of the program is about cities in action. We will be hearing from the three speakers about what are the actions being taken in these cities to develop healthy cities. We will hear about the cases of the two Japanese cities, and also Hyunji will bring to life the principles that she just talked about through the case in Bangladesh. A gentle reminder that this next session will include some presentations in Japanese. So if you would like to switch to English language now, please do so on the Zoom interpretation tool. はい。では、酒井さん、出口さん、こんにちは。ヒュンジさんも
No,
こんにちは。
Sakai-san and Deguchi-san and Hyuji-san, hello. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. We have not been able to get out of this pandemic yet, but because of this timing, I believe that the theme for this summit, new values and a new city planning, these themes are very timely. I think great opportunity to think about it deeply. And health and the cities to promote the health and the relationship between health and the livability. What is the relationship between the two? So these are the questions in our mind in learning from you today.
はい。では、すいません。本日は
Sorry, we only have 10 minutes each, so it's quite short time, but I hope that you will utilize that to the full. First, we will hear from Sakai-san, and then Deguchi-san, and lastly from Shinji-san. Yes, then Sakai-san, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Sakai from Fukuoka City office. Thank you for this opportunity today. I'd like to start with my presentation. Next slide, please. So please allow me to introduce my city, Fukuoka. With a population of over 1.6 million, Fukuoka is the fifth largest city in Japan. Geographically, we are located towards the east of Asia, 200 kilometers from Busan in Korea. Now, Fukuoka is a compact city with airport, seaport, and train stations located within 2.5 kilometers of the city center. It takes only 10 minutes by subway to reach the international airport from the center of the city. So I'll now move to the main topic of this presentation about aging population. Now you can see Japan is a country with very much of aging population. And you can see here the trend on projection of aging rate in various Asian countries. Japan is most advanced in terms of aging population. But if you look at this, other countries also expected to see rapid aging of population. So some of the explanation I hope will be of use in your cities as well. Yeah, you can see the trend of average life expectancy in Japan. Red, female, blue is male. So this is the average life expectancy in Japan. Because in Japan, one can receive high quality medical care, we are seeing the life expectancy continue to increase. This is the change in demographics. Every year, the red portion, we are seeing increase in elderly people, and we are seeing decrease in younger people. So that is a trend that we are observing right now. So in this way, when we see the aging advance, we will see the supply and demand balance of social security insurance change. And the people on the bottom, blue are people supporting, and those in yellow is being supported. And so in 1975, it was about 14 people supported one person, but less than 2 in 2040. And what this happens is that the medical expenses will increase, the service provision would become more difficult. And another the potential concern is the difference between the life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. So when one live longer, there is going to be a gap to a period where one may not be healthy. So how are we going to respond to these issues? Next slide. So here, we need to change our policy. Until now, we used to consider the age of 65 as a kind of a certain threshold. And so anyone below 65 were people doing the supporting, and people above 65 are those people to be supported. And so we need to reduce the number of people who are supported, and we need to increase the number of people who do the supporting. That's the kind of structure we need. So specifically speaking, and it's not the case that when one becomes 65, one's physical abilities drop suddenly. So people who are still motivated and are capable, rather than becoming supported, they should be supporting. Now, by extending the healthy life of the people, people can still continue to be on the supporting side. And for those doing the supporting, not the government, but we should also include the corporate sector as well as the local community. I think that is quite important. So based on this concept, in 2017, we have launched a project called the Fukuoka 100. And even in a super aged population, we want to create a sustainable society as part of this project. So this project encourages the whole of Fukuoka to take 100 actions with the participation of a wide range of entities, not only the government, but also citizen business and universities. Moving to next slide. And one more. And there are three pillars of this project. First, I would like to talk about the fitness or health building aspect. One more slide. Now, in regards to the fitness project, there are some issues. When we try to do this type of the fitness project, it's only those people who are health conscious who got involved, but who are not health conscious didn't get involved. And that led to the health disparity widening. And so it's important for us to engage those who are not interested. And one example is a walking exercise. So what you can see here is an app on a smartphone, and it says a Pacific League walk. In Japan, baseball is very popular, and Fukuoka has a professional baseball team. And so what we are doing here is to engage or try to encourage the fans to walk. So there is a kind of competition amongst the fans in regards to the steps they take. And so depending on the total the steps taken by the fans, there is a competition amongst the professional baseball teams. So we are trying to encourage people who are baseball fans to walk, who may not be interested in health normally. Also, in order to enable people to become healthy, it's important for elderly people to walk more. But in comparison to younger people, of course, the distance that one can walk at one time is not as long. And so it's important to create the benches, the seating facilities in various areas of the city. And this is an example of a bus stop. By placing a bench like this, it makes it easier for people to use public transportation system or in streets lined with trees to encourage people to walk on these streets. Next initiative is what we refer to as Fukuoka Health Lab. Now, under this project, we are trying to provide service in order to enable people to engage in healthy behaviors naturally and with fun. And we try to do this in collaboration with citizens, corporations, and universities. This is one example. This is an app on the smartphone. And in Japan, of course, there are a lot of supermarkets that people use daily to buy their groceries. And often supermarkets issue point card that people use to do the shopping. So this point card can be registered in one's own app. And so what they bought is actually reflected into the app. And so what they bought is translated into various nutritional values. So it actually shows what type of nutrients one is missing or having excess of. And so in order to make up for those the nutrients that one is lacking, there is suggestion made to buy a certain type of food item or recommend recipes. And this should lead to enhancing health of citizens, but it should also contribute towards enhancing sales at the supermarkets as well. And next, and we want to support the activities of elderly people. And working is important for mental health as well. And so we are trying to provide a support in matching those elderly who want to work with companies willing to hire. And this is the around 60 Festa. And in Japan, 60 is one point at which people start to retire. And this would be a time for people to start to relook at how they would like to spend the rest of their life. So provide an opportunity for people to think about this. Next is collaboration with the community. So once one becomes 65, and there is going to be an increase in people of that age in Japan. And so it's important to look after the health of people who are living by themselves. And there is the public halls in each of the elementary school zones, and we are using these facilities to hold various events. And so we try to encourage elderly people to come to these the public facilities to engage in exercise and so forth, who tend to stay at home. And we also do the cafe with the shopping malls. And next slide. And for elderly people who find it difficult to go shopping, we operate buses to take them to supermarkets, or to organize shopping trucks and so forth to visit their residents. So we are doing things like that as well. And the last part is utilization of ICT and big data. Well, the data that the city held, there were a medical or a nursing care or a health checkup that existed separately, but we created a platform that enabled one to look at this in an integrated way. And by looking at this in an integrated way, it enables visualization of the status quo, and also we are able to check the outcome of various initiatives implemented. And this is called a free salon that I referred to before, that is conducted in public halls and so forth. And what we found is that those people who participated in the free salon, they are spending 35,000 yen less on nursing care per year in comparison to those people who did not participate. The next one is evidence-based policy. And by utilizing the data and analyzing data, and we've realized that there is a contribution to people's walking speed and so forth of the ones weight loss. So what we have done is that the Fitness City project, in order to entice people to exercise, and this is a kind of initiative that we've implemented to try to get people to walk up the stairs rather than using the escalators. And the third part of the table before, and this is the reduction in the one's chewing ability. This also tends to lead to deterioration in one's health, and this is something that we started from this year, and this is what we refer to as Oral Care 28. And this is an initiative to encourage people to maintain their the mouth and tooth in their better condition. So rather than treatment, we're focusing on preventative actions, and we collaborating with popular characters to encourage children to start cleaning their teeth from early age. So by doing these things, we want to create a future in which everyone can enjoy the era of living for more than 100 years. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sakai-san. It was a wonderful, great presentation. Thank you very much. Those who are supported should not be designated across the board based upon the age, but rather in order to create a healthy cities. And once the policies are made, it is not possible to realize such a healthy city only after gaining the public-private partnership with private sector companies and communication with academia and cooperation and understanding of the citizens. It will be possible to implement such policies. Thank you very much. I could learn a lot from you. Later, I will ask you to appear again, and we will ask you questions later. Next, from Kobe City, Deguchi-san, the floor is yours. Yes, this is Deguchi, Director for International Business Relations, Kobe City Government. Nice to meet you all. From myself, I'd like to talk about how to build a healthy city, taking the example of Kobe City. In line with the theme of this side event, Healthy Cities in Action, Maximizing Health Co-Benefits of Inclusive Urban Investment, I would like to introduce Kobe City's efforts to quality urban living, leveraging a rich nature environment of our city. These are the items I will discuss today. So this is the outline of my presentation. It's a great opportunity. So utilizing this opportunity, I would like to make a brief introduction of our city, Kobe, and I will explain Kobe's vision for a healthy city. And I would like to introduce two specific case studies. Then I will wrap up my presentation. First, this is an overview of Kobe City. Kobe is located almost in the center of Japan, and it has a population of approximately 1.5 million people, making it the 8th largest city in Japan in terms of population size. The city's gross regional product, economic metrics, although it is quite old data, in 2017, it was approximately 6.5 trillion yen, or approximate was 56 billion US dollars. Kobe is a city with many faces. Since its opening as an international trading port in 1868, it has developed as the gateway to Western culture in Japan, in the western part of Japan. While urbanization is advancing, as you see in the picture, I will discuss in more detail today. A little further out in the suburbs, you can still find traditional Japanese scenery. As a side note, Kobe is famous for Kobe beef. Well, I attached the picture here of the beef, but this is more famous in the world. Sometimes, so therefore, we hear visitors from abroad saying, Kobe isn't the name of beef, is it? So we are asked as such sometimes. So setting my joke aside, well, I should get more serious on the topic. Kobe is blessed with the nature, such as sea and mountains, as its geographical feature. As you see in this aerial photograph, the white line is the border of the city of Kobe, and the yellow and patchy area. The yellow line is the railway system and the public transportation system. So as you can see, the proximity of the city center, urban area, and the nature can be seen. Well, this is not taken for granted. For your information, this is because of the past track record of the urban development of Kobe. Since the 1960s, in order to secure land for housing for the rapidly growing population and industrial use, therefore, mountains had been cleared, and the earth and the sand taken from the mountains have been used to reclaim artificial islands. So we could secure the land for increasing population. This is how Kobe City has continued development. Well, this was called mountains going to the sea. So this is known as such. So this is one of the features or models of Kobe, based on how the city of Kobe has been developed in Japan. From now on, I would like to talk about the main topic. First, here is the basic concept. We have a 5-year implementation plan called the Kobe 2025 Vision. This calls for the development of a city that contributes to the global community as a city that has experienced and overcome large-scale disasters, while Kobe earthquake, and while taking advantage of Kobe's strengths, such as its rich natural environment and cosmopolitan nature and diversity, as well as a city where each and every citizen can feel safe and secure, and can realize happiness and contentment. a globally contributing city nestled between the sea and the mountains. In the era with COVID, physical distance or social distance is required. Unfortunately, I believe that this demand is expected to continue for some time. People live and work densely in a small area. Until now, this type of urban development has been done from the standpoint of economic rationality. The more people gather, the greater the opportunities for business, the easier it is to gather information, and the more rational it is to invest the social capital at a single point. However, the concentration of people in a single urban area has always been associated with the risks such as traffic congestion and the natural disasters, and the outbreak of the coronavirus has increased the risk of being densely populated itself. Therefore, there are three important perspectives required in the with COVID era. Number one, a shift away from the approach focusing on high density of the past. And secondly, strong bond based on people-to-people ties. And number three, resolving the anxiety of citizens, which is taken for granted as the municipal government. We have to come to the conclusion that these things should be taken into consideration in the development and the operation as a healthy city. As I explained earlier, Kobe has a rich natural environment adjacent to the urban area. Taking advantage of this geographical feature, we would like to propose a new way of life in the era with COVID. That is to say, a way of living and working that can provide spatial and psychological leeway. These Kobe policies were actually conceived even before the pandemic. Although we did not foresee the COVID era, they are essential ideas for the future development of a healthy city. And Kobe would like to further evolve urban development that is suitable for lifestyles with spatial leeway. Of these, I would like to introduce two examples: the concept of creative smart Rokkosan mountains and urban development strategies that take advantage of the geographical proximity between urban and rural areas. Rokkosan. What is Rokkosan? Perhaps I should explain what Rokkosan is. Rokkosan is behind the city of Kobe. It is the mountain range called the Rokkosan. The concept of creative smart Rokko mountains was launched in 2020. This includes the following 3 points: working in nature rather than in the dense spaces of a metropolis where there is a risk of corona infection, and to conduct the demonstration trials for smart city on the mountain by using technology, and to foster creative thinking while enjoying the beautiful view. The abundance of nature enriches human imagination, fosters collaboration, and creates connections that give rise to creativity. Well, I would like to show you a video to explain what I have explained. This is a brief one, promotional video. This concept was inspired by an attempt to revitalize long-term disused corporate recreational facilities and private mountain lodges as places to work. Here is a case study of a company. This company built an office as an extension on the grounds of its own cafe on Rokkosan Mountain. It used to be held by this company as a recreational facility, and it relocated its head office functions there. And this company, this is another company's example. This company plans to renovate former recreational facilities to create rental offices and co-working places for IT startups and creators. And Rokko Nomado, a new networking hub, was opened. The concept is work in residence, living and working in the forest. It will not only be the co-working space and office, but also a place where people can lodge. Experience-based short stay programs are provided, teleworking and workation. It will be a base where local residents interact with creators and those who practice new styles of working. Another strategy, I will talk about the strategic community development, utilizing the proximity of urban and rural areas as an initiative that takes advantage of our natural environment. This is not only for Kobe City, but in the 21st century, rural areas are experiencing a declining birth rate and aging population, and the number of farmers is decreasing, while an increasing number of urban residents wish to live in rural areas due to the diversification of values. Since 2015, we have been promoting migration to the settlements in rural areas as part of the Kobe Satoyama Life program. Deregulation has included relaxing standards for building houses and allowing entrepreneurial uses such as opening cafes and workshops. Support measures include the operation of a vacant house bank and subsidies for the renovation of vacant houses. And because of the proximity of the urban and the rural areas, we are promoting the local production for local consumption. Kobe is a consumption center with a population of 1.5 million and a production center with an environment conducive to the production of a wide variety of agricultural and marine products. That's why we are promoting local production for local consumption. A specific initiative include school meals, designating farmland dedicated to growing vegetable for school lunches, and a farmers market is held almost every week in a large park in the middle of the city center. Let me wrap up from my presentation today. I hope you have taken the following three key messages concerning the development of a healthy city in Kobe. First, as the flip side of the shift from this policy to focus on high density, we needed to create urban space with plenty of space and leeway. And we needed to promote our initiatives, making use of the natural environment, as this is one of Kobe's advantages as a city with a rich natural environment. Finally, and thirdly, although there may be some overlap with the second point, we should promote community development that takes advantage of the proximity of urban and rural areas, and the Satoyama Life and local production for local consumption. Kobe City aims to be a city where citizens can continue to live comfortably and in good health, even in the era of coexistence with COVID. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. And Kobe has been able to realize policies like this because not only because of the fact that you're close to mountains and the ocean, but I think you have been enhancing innovation, which has enabled that to happen. So thank you very much. I will very much look forward to hearing more from you in the panel session. And
Over back to our presenter Hyunji for the last case on Bangladesh. So Hyunji, over to you.
Okay, let me again share my screen. And yes, I think you see my screen. Yes. So yeah, hi again. I'm going to, first of all, thank you so much for these fascinating cases of Mr. Sakai and Mr. Deguchi. That was really, really promising cases from Japan. I really learned a lot. And now, then I would like to share a bit different example from the developing world, which is Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. I personally really like this city because this is really energetic city and a lot of dynamics. Of course, there's a lot of tons of challenges, but then they can be translated into the great potential if appropriate actions are taken. So I'm going to briefly talk about the overview background of Dhaka and ongoing effort towards a healthier future and some key takeaways. So Dhaka is again the capital of Bangladesh, and as a left side map shows, it has been rapidly urbanized. During the last 4 years, the urban population of the Dhaka has increased more than 400 times. But then the infrastructure and urban services of the city was not able to keep up with the speed of that urbanization. So as a result, as the right side map shows, the Dhaka has been listed as one of the least livable cities. And the main reason for this is that limited infrastructure and services. And so to address this, the complicated issues, the World Bank has been working closely with the city with the special focus on these 4 different pillars. First is the food market and retail activities. As I just mentioned during the framing presentation, this is a quite new activity. And after the COVID, the city realized, oh, we have overlooked this area by now, and we really growing a number of initiatives on this area. And then mobility network and also community facilities, which includes how to provide the primary health care through utilizing underused community centers or other urban assets, and also public spaces to make them safer, more inclusive, and more accessible. So today I'll focus on this public space and also the food market system. So first case is placemaking, participatory urban upgrading. So there's a World Bank funded project, which is called Dhaka City Neighborhood Upgrading Project. And the project focuses on the revitalizing public spaces. And when the project was designed, it was really agreed that the participatory designing process is absolutely critical, because there's often the public spaces in the city is used for different purposes, and also there are also lack of management and O&M system, and institutional arrangement for these public spaces are extremely fragmented. Like for example, basic service delivery are offered by more than 52 agencies in one city. So to address this really complicated situation, it was really important to get the endorsement from all different types of stakeholders, and also reflect the different demands and voices from the old communities. So the city government has been leading this pioneering placemaking exercise in the country. This is the first of kind in the country, actually. And then, as you can see from the photos, there's excitement about the actual participatory urban designing processes. And people really try to reflect their voices and really design by themselves. And it went quite viral, and there's a quite excitement among people there. And this is not just showing off the design exercise, but it was really reflected in the design processes. And this is one result of the participatory design process. And with this 3D overview, maybe it looks just fancy, the fake diagram, but then it is the implementable design. And there's no need of any massive construction, right? This is really about incremental and small gradual efforts to make this waterfront area to make more safer, cleaner, and walkable. So this was one of the examples from on this project, urban public space revitalization. And the second example is about the market and food system enhancement. So as I just mentioned, city realized that food markets are really critical to healthy urban lifestyle in the city, especially because that the food markets serve more than 85% of the household in the city, regardless of their income level of the neighborhood, of the household. And if those food markets, fresh markets, are not managed well, then it directly affects the health conditions of citizens in the city. So at the same time, the city realized that it is true that the current system is unable to meet the growing demand and different demands, and also the urban poor is exposed to higher food-related health risks. So left side graph shows the different types of ownership of food markets. And the red color bar represents the share of the privately owned food market. And you can see that the majority of the food market are owned by the private sector. This explains that there's a really important role of private sector in managing and operating this food market in the city. But they're still very much undercapitalized. So there are always a lack of the money or financial resources to maintain their facilities and provide the services and really try to keep up with the hygiene standards. So this really requires further support from the public sector, including city government and also the national government. And also more recently, the World Bank carried out the rapid citywide geospatial assessment of the food market in the city with the FAO. And what we found is that the Dhaka is quite dense, one of the densest cities in the world, and the markets are really evenly distributed all different neighborhoods. So they quite have a good access to the market, like including the very low income neighborhoods, the slum areas. But the issue was the low income neighborhoods have less access to formal markets or city level markets that are cleaner and have more better conditions. So those low income areas have only access to small and temporary markets that are more exposed to higher health risks. So here we understand that this has to be, the urban access has to be taken. And so with understanding that there is a better operation model is necessary to mitigate the health and safety risks, the World Bank and the city is kicked off the project on upgrading a couple of actual markets, not only focusing on the physical upgrading of this market, but then try to improve the revenue increase creation mechanism, and also how to provide electricity, running water, and all the services infrastructure to those markets, and also safety and improvement mitigation measures. And so this is really small part of the comprehensive set of the interventions in the city. And the key takeaways would be that our interventions on built environment are not just about physical upgrading, but it has to require broader consideration, including O&M and more complementary support to the entire ecosystem and value chain for rural to urban spectrum. And Mr. Deguchi shared from the Kobe City example, that how we can understand the role of city with the surrounding area would be also a very important aspect of promoting this health city agenda. And also to make that happen, as I mentioned during the framing presentation, there's a growing need for institutional arrangement and coordination across different sectors and also different scales of the government, also different sectors, including private sector and public sector and the citizens. And so for this reason, World Bank has been carrying out a mapping out exercise of the different different agencies that are involved in this kind of a healthy city agenda actions, and try to understand what would be the best model for this institutional arrangement for the city. But then even if we have a best answer or option for the institutional arrangement and coordination, what is the most important part would be the multi-ministry, city, and cross-sector commitment, and also the collaboration with the bank as well. So this is really open the question about how we want to collaborate more with different cities and with different stakeholders all together to maximize the health outcomes of our urban interventions. Let me stop here. I think, I don't know how much time I spent. Over to you, Shoko. Thank you.
Kenji, thank you so much. I'm so happy that we came to you last because you seem to have tied everything together. From Kobe, we heard about reaping the benefits of the physical environment. From the Fukuoka case, we learned about the importance of multi-sectoral cooperation. And I feel like the Dhaka case brought those elements all together. So thank you very much. So with this, we would like to move to the Q&A section of the Q&A section. But before we go for the Q&A directly for the presentations we just heard, we actually got some questions for Hyunji for her first presentation. I think the floor just needed a couple minutes to warm up. So Hyunji, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to come back to you. If you could give a very brief, enlighten us with a few words, with what are the questions that we received from the chat. The question is about what are the kind of tools and the processes that promote inclusion in urban planning. So, and it's a very important question of what are the best ways to promote building consensus, social consensus, to invest in public funding for investments specifically towards the vulnerable populations that you were talking about. So Hyunjin, maybe over to you, and then we will go to the other speakers for other questions.
I'm so sorry, Shoko. I was disconnected for a second. Could you repeat the question?
No problem. No problem
Thank you so much.
whatsoever. So Hyunji, this pertains to your first presentation, and we just received a question in the chat. So I just wanted to see if you can enlighten us with just a few words for the question for this question before we move to the others. I wanted to give a chance for you to reply to the audience. So the question is about what kind of tools or processes are available for promoting inclusion in urban planning, and more importantly, what are the type of ways to build social consensus towards investing in public funding that goes towards the vulnerable groups that you were talking about in your presentation? Hyunji? Okay, so Hyunji, I'm sorry, everybody, but we have lost Hyunji for just a few minutes. So if I may, we will go back to the panel and the Japanese speakers we have here. Hyunji, if you're back, we will come back with this question at a later time. Thank you for everyone's patience. This is the world of virtual, but we have many, many interesting questions to come. Okay, switching to Japanese for just a second. Deguchi-san, Sakai-san.
Deguchi-san and Sakai-san and Hyunji-san, thank you very much. Now we would like to open the floor for Q&A. Actually, from those who are participating online, we have received several questions already. Before starting to answering those questions, I would like to ask you first from myself. My first question is related to infrastructure and the built environment. What has been the policy or more effective policies to make your cities cleaner and healthier? Particularly in order to build a healthy city, I think that there are hardware and software aspects. And what is the relationship between the two? Could you please give us your thoughts? So in the order of Deguchi-san and Sakai-san and then Hyunji-san. Deguchi-san, please. Yes? Do you hear me? Yes. Well, in terms of the topics, and I think that all the essence I wanted to say are already incorporated in my presentation. The environment, particularly natural environment, it should be incorporated in our city planning, and that is what we focused on. The initiative itself may give you the impression that we have been focusing on the hardware side, but having the natural environment and just looking at the nature, you'll be able to have the feeling of security and a peace of mind. So in the city planning, we are incorporating the natural environment. So that is what we are doing at Kobe. Okay, understood. I think that the impression is more rather on the hardware, but it's not separable between hardware and the software. Just having the hardware and looking at the hardware as scenery, you will be able to have the peace at ease for the software side. And Sakai-san. The healthy city and waste management and also water and the sewage, and these are the basics. In Fukuoka City, we have already overcome those issues. And because of the COVID-19, what we have done as a feature of our policies, we have the initiative called the Fukuoka City responsive to the spread of the infection. The replacement is ongoing for all the buildings in Fukuoka, and ventilation, non-contact and the physical distance to be secured. So in order to enrich such environment to facilitating, and then there will be the subsidies or consideration for allowing the lenient the floor area ratio. And we suppose that there will be another wave of pandemic in the future, and we can be more resilient city in Fukuoka by doing these initiatives. Thank you very much, Sakai-san.
And next, Hyunji, if we are back online and can hear us, wonderful, I can see you. So Hyunji, we have moved on to the next question. So just to recap that the question is, in order to make a city cleaner and healthier, what are some of the perspectives or what are sort of the policies and the practices that have been implemented in terms of when we think about infrastructure and the built environment? How important are these things in the development of a healthy city?
Sure. I think we've already covered quite a number of such examples today, and also Mr. Deguchi and Mr. Sakai covered it very well. But what I would like to highlight here once again is that healthy city actions doesn't have to be very massive and gigantic interventions, right? Small and incremental and social, and so those soft action policies are more important maybe. And also that's why we need to think through how we can maximize those health outcomes through from all kinds of existing ongoing interventions on infrastructure and built environment. So let me take a housing example, right? Slum upgrading sounds very huge and big standalone agenda. But then the pattern and the trend of the slum upgrading has evolved a lot from the one-time shot construction type to incremental intervention incremental improvement, and also the in-situ slum upgrading type of interventions. And for example, when we think about, if we're changing the muddy floor to a hard floor, can immediately reduce the parasitic infections, which means that there is a soft impact, the health impact of the small hard infrastructure intervention. And all this floor and ventilation system, as Deguchi-san and Sakai-san mentioned, they have really very impactful health positive outcomes. So I really think that the first step would be really to assess the city's own needs, and then try to prioritize what they need, and then take the actions on a step by step, and so that they can, guide towards a healthier future. And I believe this is related to the first question that one of the audience can raise actually, the trade-off between the inclusion and whom to we target, and between the youth and elderly and women, and what would be the definition of the inclusion by definition. And my answer would be there's no one, one-size-fits-all answer for you, right? This is really about to assess the different types of priorities of the city, and then that's the responsibility of the city to understand what their situation, what their context, and then prioritize the most vulnerable people that need the support on related to the health outcomes, right? So that is the first starting point, a starting step of the try to promote the inclusive health city actions. So let me stop here for this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Hyunji, for highlighting the importance of incremental policies and incremental steps. I think that's applicable to all of the conversations that we've heard today. So thank you for enlightening us with that.
Thank you very much. So next question, it's lesson learned for other cities in one sense. In order for cities to promote healthy urban development, what are the challenges faced? And in order to overcome those challenges, what were the actions taken? And this is what we'd like to hear from you. In particular, in the case of developing nation, and it's not only developing nation, but from the world, Japan looks quite clean, and it looks like to be a wonderful place where elderly people are supported. So I think there are many people who think very positively of the cities in Japan, but of course, Japan did face many challenges in getting here, and probably facing various challenges right now. So what were the challenges faced, and what were the solutions implemented? If you could share with us your thoughts in that regard. And I would like to ask Sakai-san to start, then Hyunji second, and Deguchi-san to conclude. Sakai-san? It has an overlap with some of the things that I've said before, but the water or the waste management, to have infrastructure for that is quite important. And when we go to the next stage, and how to save high-risk people. And so we need to address those people in need and addressing people in poverty. But what we are facing right now, those people who are not having difficulties right now or not interested in issues, but if we leave unattended, this could potentially cause difficulties in the future. So for that type of people, what type of preventative measures can we implement? This is something that we've raised as a challenge for Fukuoka City right now. And the approach taken, and I've touched upon this in my presentation a little bit as well, but to try to entice people to move their body, to have people engage in exercise with fun, and to create an approach like that, we tend to think that we may be able to contribute to enhancing people to engage in exercise more. Thank you very much, Sakai-san. And the timeline for thinking about thinking of challenges is very important. And in Sakai-san's presentation, you talked about the aging society. We talked about the measures to be implemented. Now, the cities in the developing nations may not be facing the Asian society right now, but in 10 years or 20 years, this is definitely going to be a challenge that they will face. And so to come up with policy right now, to think ahead is quite important. Thank you for that. So next, Hyunji.
Over to you. My apologies. Maybe Hyunji, we lost Hyunji again. なのですいませんが、出口さん、お願いします。
わかりました。はい。そしたら
So, Deguchi-san? Well, like Hyunji-san said before, I think the background is different from different cities and different countries. And so we'll put that aside. But in the case of Kobe, from 1960s, and this is the era in Japan where the country went through a high level of economic growth, and we looked at economic rationality first, and that was the basis upon which urban development took place. And it was okay back then to do that, and that has enabled Japan to develop. And so I don't mean to speak negatively of that. It was just a history that we went through. But from there, and there is a similarity what Sakai-san said from the Fukuoka City, but from the developing nations, the Japan may have looked quite advanced. And this could be an Asian society with a declining birth rate, with the city development focusing on the economic rationality. But maybe COVID has triggered this, but what Japan is working on, what the Japanese cities are working on right now, and of course, the various cities are picking up various things from various perspectives, but to try to pick up on that and to have that fed back to the people in the developing nation may be useful from the long-term perspective. The global population could potentially start to decline one day. So the current perspective or long-term perspective, it may be difficult, but when operating a city, you need to look at the situation from various timelines, and the challenge that at a time would differ from time to time, and so that those needs to be addressed as well. But these are all the elements that is something that we need to consider being involved in operational city.
Yes, I think so. Yes, Hyunji
Yes.
back with us?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. Hyunji, welcome back. So just to recap that the question is, any lessons that you can share with us on the type of challenges being faced in implementing some of these policies for healthy cities? What are the lessons learned that we can take away from for other cities?
So I think that is one of the really really like difficult question. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm so sorry about this. Internet connection is quite unstable right now. So the thing is that, as I just mentioned, whenever we talk about these cases, I don't say they're best practices because cities has their own context all the time. And also they all have different types of tons of challenges. But then I really would like to highlight the importance of having a city level health cities in developing country cities. And then this is one of the that we can learn from Japanese cities.
Hyunji, I'm very, very
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but the connection is not holding. So,
Okay.
if you are still online and maybe you can put a few sentences by chat, we would love to hear what you have to say that way.
Okay.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for trying though, and we welcome you back anytime. But this is unfortunately the situation with the virtual world. So to our audience, I apologize for the inconvenience, but thank you for your patience with us. But with this, 55 minutes, this discussion flew by. So thank you so much for joining us. A very big thank you to Sakai-san from Fukuoka, to Deguchi-san from Kobe, and also to Hyunji connecting with us from Korea as well. So thank you all very much. A very warm thank you from me for joining us today. And I would like to invite Chris back to our stage to share kind of key reflections from the discussions today, because we heard about Bangladesh, we heard about Japanese cities, just kind of all packaging it together. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shoko. I will not attempt to cover again the very, very rich observations that we can take out of this conversation. A few things though, I think what we got from all three presentations is that we really need to rethink the way we respond to urban challenges to make our cities healthier, resilient, and inclusive. We saw the presentations from the Japanese, for example, the shift in, for instance, the way to manage the aging segments of the population, and the way we think about densification. No? In the case of Kobe, they're encouraging more activities in the periphery of the city, whereas before we promote densification in urban core. No? So that's certainly for me a little bit of a shift from how we think in terms of managing cities, no? And even for simple things like O&M that Yunji spoke about, we need to adjust how we think about the upkeep of our facilities, no, during these changing times. One other observation I'd like to share is that from all these three presentations, cities need to continuously innovate and adapt to the changing conditions and quickly, no? Because things like happen so rapidly, like what we see these days, no? And so we're really very glad to have been part of this dialogue. And we in the Tokyo Development Learning Center, we commit to facilitate further dialogue on the topic and to share knowledge as much as we can. And so thank you again to our presenters, Mr. Deguchi, Mr. Sakai, Ms. Lee, and to all those who joined today. Thank you very much. Goodbye and have a nice day. Uh,
ありがとうございます。あ、
お疲れ様でした。